Sorry. Okay. Sure. Hello. Hi. So for those watching online, thank you. We have some people still trickling in. There's a crowd of about 300, 400 out there. That's my mom. Um, so yeah, we're expecting some more people to come in, so we're slowly going to get started. Welcome to Robotics X Tokyo's January 2024 meetup. We don't have any slides today, but I think what we're going to be doing is we're going to be jumping in and showing pictures and videos to talk about the state of robotics from a very not broad perspective. So this event is Robotics X Tokyo. We hold a meetup every month, and unfortunately, we still don't have a LinkedIn page or a YouTube channel. I'm going to change that soon, but we've been going for about a year and a half or 2 years, running meetups and events. It's kind of like the child of an old event back in Silicon Valley that I used to run with great roboticist Andre Kie called Bots and Beer. Brought it over here, and now it's Robotics X Tokyo for the Tokyo part. So our goal is to basically bring together all of the roboticists, or as many as we can, in Tokyo, across company lines, across research lines, across corporate, weird, cagey lines, to talk and just sort of be candid with each other, and try to share knowledge in a safe way, not risking IP theft or anything like that. But I really want people to sort of come together, because I think if roboticists come together, we can do a lot better than what we saw today. So yes, so this particular event, we went to Robodex, which is part of Factory Innovation Week at Tokyo Big Sight, and we walked around, took it in. Some of us actually had booths there. And we're basically just going to talk about what we saw, how we feel about it, and we'll go for about an hour, and then we'll do more drinks and networking outside. So first, I think we can introduce our panel. We'll go first with Russ.
Hey, I'm Russ. aka Robo Russ. I have the domain. I'm from Mass Robotics. We're like a sister org of the CIC. So think of like this, but just co-working space, only robotic startups. We don't take equity. We're a nonprofit. We help them scale and connect them with lots of corporates and startups and other and academia and all kinds of things. So yeah, that's kind of just the brief. I used to work at SoftBank Robotics on like Pepper and Now, and I'm also moonlighting trying to help a company actually Waseda with like an anime humanoid robot. So fun stuff.
Hi, my name is Marco. I am semi-retired at this point, but I worked before as a CTO of Ascent Robotics, where we did a lot of industrial robotics and factory automation, and that's what brings me here.
Hello, my name is Avik Das, and thanks, Mike, for bringing this event together. So this is my third event, I think third or fourth event, and yeah, I moved to Tokyo as right at the beginning of when Mike started this event. So it's perfect timing from Silicon Valley. So I moved from San Francisco. I used to work at SRI International in Menlo Park. I've been in robotics for 20 years. And I have a startup which I moved to Japan for. It's called Guide Robotics, and we have a booth at the Smart Logistics Expo, which is one of the exhibitions that's happening at Big Sight as part of Factory Innovation Week. So there were robots in Robodex, but there were robots and other technology, and there are 3 other things happening there. So anyway, but good to see you all. Thanks.
Cool. And I'm the moderator for tonight. My name is Mike Sudano. So I've also been about 20 years in the robotics industry. I started out at Honeybee Robotics, which is a space robotics company back in New York City. Then I moved to Silicon Valley in 2011 and became a Sarariman officially. Started working for Kawasaki Robotics, had a stint with Mitsubishi, and then some startups, and then Toyota family. So I joined Toyota Research Institute, and now I'm with Woven by Toyota here in Nihonbashi. Big robotics fan, video game fan, and yeah. So I'd like to get started by just taking like 2 minutes per person just to get your feel for the general state of robotics as it is right now with the AI hype, LLMs, all of the craze going on right now, and then how that compares to what you saw at Robodex today or yesterday. I'd like to also give a disclaimer that we are for non-Japanese folks talking about the Japanese robotics industry potentially. So, we're coming at it from a very sort of narrow perspective, but from one with experience in the robotics industry. So please take all of it with a grain of salt. But yeah, so Russ, robotics, go.
Yeah. Wow. 2 minutes. Okay. Yeah. Obviously, AI is like on a lot of people's minds. Oddly enough, I don't know. I didn't see like there's compelling uses. Obviously, there just generically, but there isn't a lot of things that you see on the show floor that was like, oh my god, like this is like game changer, this is amazing, even if it's purported to be. And I think robotics inherently is more touching on the hardware realm, and extrapolating from that, hardware takes time, it's longer cycles, it's difficult to like get things put in the right everything together. So naturally, again, with that, VCs are kind of anemic to it. So VCs like don't want to invest often because it's going to take a while. The return isn't clear. I think AI is kind of spicing that up because it's like, okay, now it's software again, and like it's an app, and like we can do things. But I think still the hardware is sort of where it. A lot of companies that kind of were ignored now are like a little bit have another gleam, another shot at the title or whatnot. So I don't know if that makes sense, but I'll leave that on the table, I guess.
That's great. That's great. Marco?
Yeah. So at present there are two main like technologies that are very interesting when it comes to robotics. One is obviously large language models, and the other one is the rise of simulation for robotic training. In the context of robotics, I haven't seen either of those, which is actually to be expected because there is a wide gap between what's happening in state-of-the-art research and what's actually needed in factory shop floors and in industry, right? So yeah, sure, we can make great demos with large language models and robots can talk with us and whatever, right? But that's not what we need in factories most of the time. So this particular RobotX and Robotics Expo was more or less similar to the previous 5 that I attended in the previous 5 years. I can't recall that I've seen anything very impressive, but it's systems that work, that fulfill their task, and that's what we need actually in industry, right? We don't want robots that hallucinate as ChatGPT. That will not be good.
Quick question before we move on to Avik. So if you think about your first Robodex versus this one, if you went to those 1 year right after the other, would you see a big difference there?
No, absolutely the same.
Okay.
Wow, looks like we've set the stage for people's expectations. Yeah. Well, the good news is I'm trying to figure out the best best way to start. But I guess for some of us, we are a bit biased and maybe slightly disillusioned by being in robotics and people expecting a lot of things, and then seeing what works in the market or is accepted, and what makes it to the real world in factories and industries. Because it is an industrial expo, and frankly, no one cares about technology. It's all about, is it going to help solve their labor problems? Is it going to save them money? How much do they need to put in and how much will they get back, right? That's all they care about. So while we might have crazy AI and And the reason you will see right now, all the AI stuff, everything is happening. No one talks about a factory. It's about robots going around in homes and cleaning up, coffee counters and all. That's the kind of stuff, right? And even humanoids. I mean, outside of Japan, and this is where I think Japan has the edge. This man worked for Kawasaki. Kawasaki has the most impressive industrial humanoid that can actually do work. But all you hear about is Figure and Tesla and all doing yoga or picking up an egg or like a coffee cup. I mean, if you're building humanoids to do that, anyway. So, but coming back to Robodex, I think what Marco said is correct. There's not been a lot of improvements in things except for is Japan. So there are conveyors that move faster. There are rubber suckers that suck better. There's tape that's used for safety and stuff on the floor for AGVs. There are no AGVs anymore, but AMRs have QR codes all over the floor. So I'm like, basically, we changed the term from AGV to AMR, but we haven't gone that far. Like the navigation is still unsolved. Meanwhile, mobile manipulators are putting more and more different kind of grippers, but no one wants to do multi-fingered, grasping. That's still in research. And so nothing has changed, even though it seems to have changed, right? But yeah, but as I said, there were things that I think AI is helping. By the way, this is, Marco may not agree because it's not cutting edge, is that the recognition on the edge, like recognizing characters, barcodes, RFID, those things are way faster and running on mobile processors that are tiny and GPUs. And that's going to, if people were thinking of putting 2 and 2 together, that's going to change things. Because imagine a robot that can actually read the signs in a factory floor or warehouse. But no, we are still going to look at QR codes, right? So anyway, I'll stop there.
Very, very interesting. So I wanted to quickly give my take as well. I walked in and I thought, oh my, what's this robot? This one looks so cool. And it was a emergency fire station. But it looked like a really cool robot. But a lot of the ones that I saw there were basically rehashes of what Kiva Systems was doing 15 years ago maybe. So a lot of, like you said, AMRs, AGVs, rolling around, picking up shelves. Yes. Yes, sure. Sorry about that. So AGV, autonomous ground vehicle, and guided vehicle, and AMR, autonomous mobile robot, which essentially is the same thing. So yeah, actually, what is the difference between AGV and AMR?
Sorry about that, but I only had 2 minutes. So your fault. Okay, so AGV is the classical factory guided magnetic strip or tape guided robot that was there since the 70s, I think 70s, 80s, which means there were big robots that could move. Actually, it was wonderful technology. If you think about it, it's a magnetic strip. You don't get false positives. You literally are following a magnetic strip embedded on the floor. So it worked perfectly. But people didn't want to, have magnets or metal embedded. So they said, oh, let's put tape. Oh, with a camera, we can track the tape. That was also very precise. Then they were like, oh, we don't want to put guided tape anywhere. So we want to be fully flexible. So which means that you don't need to add infrastructure to your robot. It should be able to navigate and go places. And that's where, robotics has been spiraling basically at that problem. So while it's an AMR, which in your mind, it should mean that it can go from point A to point B without needing all kinds of infrastructure in the middle, but that's not true. As I saw that there were basically like a grid of QR codes placed on the floor every, I would say about every 30 to 50 centimeters. And that's no different from what Kiva Robotics was doing. Maybe it was more dense then, but I'm sure they have moved on. And even Amazon has its own actual AMR, which they debuted after 15 years, like just last year. It's called Proteus or something. I still haven't seen it in production. So anyway.
So I threw up some pictures. So this is a picture of one of the AMRs. And again, nothing super different. I'm not sure what this company was, but bringing shelves. And we saw this repeated, at least 3 or 4 times at the expo. One interesting thing I did notice is there's at least one competitor to Harmonic Drive, because they were in such demand. So Harmonic Drive, what they have is sort of a flexible spline motor, which has very good torque to weight ratio. and it's in really high demand because you can put small motors in robot arms and you could have really good torque in small space. But that means that a lot of people want it and couldn't get it for years. So I don't know if this is the only competitor, but this was something interesting I came across at least. So trends that I saw, two of the trends I saw, so there were simulation and digital twins, like Marco mentioned. So a lot of like, let's come up with your factory in the cloud, quote unquote, beforehand, so you can plot everything out and then get everything exactly right when you actually deploy robots. Another thing was just like CES. I don't know if you've seen the video where someone did a summary of CES and it was just 3 minutes of different people saying the word AI over and over. That I saw that in a few places. Another interesting thing I saw was instead of having AMRs, people were sometimes putting robot arms on linear drives or other things to move them around. Whereas previously in factories, you would really see there would be a workstation and the robot would be stationary, and then you'd buy like 30 robots to do different things, but you might have downtime on certain robots. So as a factory manager, you'd be losing money. Now the robots, can slide back and forth. I don't know how new this is, but at least this large linear drive was really impressive. Other than that, yeah, kind of, we saw the same real senses and other sensors on things repeatedly. It was funny. I actually did see a few 3D printed robots, and I didn't expect that. I figured that they were going to kind of bring the more polished. So I want to take a step back because we haven't actually explained Robodex. So Robodex isn't a big conference. It's not like CES or anything like that. It's a relatively small conference. It started in 2017 as part of Factory Innovation Week, and it's mainly focusing on factory robots. So there's nothing really revolutionary here in terms of user interaction or anything like that. But I'm wondering, did you see user interaction, especially in factory settings where safety is a big issue? Did you see any sort of advances in things like safety or, cobots, whatnot? You can go first, Russ.
Yeah. So I think two of the very nuanced things that I've been like watching, not just at this show, but as you hang around and like robotics things, is one, the big one is the concept of an integrator. So keep your ears on the ground when people talk about integrators and like in the industry, because like at the end of the day, if you're a big company, middle company, whatever, and you're like, you go to the show and you're like, this is cool, I love this robot, sometimes the companies themselves will be like, I want to be the integrator, which is fine. And I think everybody has a different definition of what an integrator is, but basically it's somebody who makes it work in the factory, right? So at the end of the day, like, great, they make an ARM or an AMR, they're still going to need supporting equipment, or they need a link to old systems or new systems or other systems. There has to be somebody on the ground to make that work. There's a few more prestigious companies that are doing it. There's smaller companies, they're companies themselves. So always keep an eye out for that, because that's actually what is going to make it happen. The other thing one thing that did kind of, I don't think this is actually what the demonstration was doing, but I think it was a Kawada robot. Actually, not even at Robodex. I think it was at NEPCON. So it's like a adjacent convention. That's like the same place. It was showing that robot manufacturing, basically placing circuit boards on another robot who solders, like does micro soldering, and the whole setup looked very like low cost in terms of robots. I mean, that's not saying much, but in terms of like what's next to it as like a placement machine, those run a ton of money. They're like, I don't know, $500,000 or something. So if you could get a robot that's like, $50,000 and another setup that's like maybe $50,000, that's $100,000, still expensive. It's cheaper than like that another type of machine. So again, stuff like that, it gets the industry like, oh, I could do this capability for a lower cost than certain machines. So yeah, I don't know if that's kind of stuff.
Can you remind me, what is it? NEPCON? Is it for Nepo babies? Is that it?
NEPCON, it's for, I don't know what it stands, but it's basically all the small So when you make circuit boards, it's components, like machines that like kind of like solder things or cook them or I don't know, place things. I think that's what it is.
Got it. Okay. Got it. So electronics
Yeah.
parts. Got it.
Yeah.
And I did throw up a picture of the Robot Support Center in Chiba. And there were a bunch of companies that had the label that they were part of the Association of Robot Integrators, which is weird to me because it's something that I had heard of working for Mitsubishi and Kawasaki years ago, that we would have our robot and then there would be an integrator that would build sort of the whole, what do they call it? The work cell. So, of course, Tesla has these, every company has these in their factories, but to have an association of them, it seems like it's become a little bit more prestigious to be an integrator now. And there's an association, so that was surprising.
Yeah,
And then if you want to go with
yeah, I think integrators are like, so if especially from the startup perspective, I think it's important to recognize that in the industry, because a lot of startups, like, I think they don't realize that they're like trying to be integrators when they could make a solution and then like hand it off to an integrator. So just something to think about from the startup aspect.
Yeah, so this is a perfect segue. The integrator thing, I don't know how, as you said, outside of Japan, but I have amazing stories about integrators because in my experience, the people who make the most advanced, crazy robots for things from like construction AGVs to nuclear inspection robots in their garage are retired Japanese gentlemen in their 60s who basically have finished their career in Pioneer or whatever, and essentially they can build a robot from scratch and it'll be like amazing, including a nuclear inspection robot. So that's my experience with integrators. But coming back to the other thread around what looked different. I don't know if you guys felt the same, but the robot arms that were on display could kill a human being in 1 second. But at this conference, and I don't know if it's a trend, but they were moving closer to the crowd and there were no cages anywhere. So which means the faith in the software or the controller has gone exponentially up, because
this is exactly what I was thinking.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't see, there were some robots that were extra huge, like some of the Denso or the Fanuc robots were big and they were, in the cell because they were picking up boxes, but things like this were just, you could get really close. And there's either a lot of faith or a lot of short-sightedness, frankly.
Let's attribute it to the software geniuses. The robot controller, after 50 years, maybe is like perfect now. Right?
Wait,
so,
in Japan?
I don't know. Wherever they bought the robot from, the robot controller. Yeah.
No, but they're still cobots, right? They're not like
No. These were running like literally they were doing a pick and place repeat, but there was no human anywhere. It was just running.
Yeah, no, but the robots are of the cobot variant, which are intended to work with humans, and they're not like
no, some were like actual.
I would say
Fanuc.
that is very illegal, and they should shut down the conference.
All right, moving on.
Moving on.
Yes, but that was definitely something I saw. So there is potentially more faith. I can't compare it to other Robodexes. This was my first, or I haven't been to a robotics conference in years either. But it did strike me as something that was interesting. So there is some level of faith there. So here, another shot of AI, by the way. So I know it might be hard to come up with, but what is sort of the most, considering everything that we've talked about so far, everything that you saw there, the criticisms of stuff kind of being the same, what is something that was super unique there that you think will gain traction over the next year, if anything?
There's definitely some things. I think some startups. So I think there's like the middle ground. So there's like one startup that that actually came out of like Japan called Triorb. They make like a small AMR type thing, and I think it fits kind of the in between of like, okay, like you have a a forklift, which is too big, and then you have like a pallet jack, which is also a little unwieldy but simple. And then you have like a smaller AMR that you can just control with a controller, which is another funny thing is like everybody's talking about AI and advanced path planning, and like literally you go to an actual facility and people will be like, I just want to like pick up a barrel, have it move around. Give me a PS2 controller, I'll drive it. I don't care. This is the reality, I don't need this. Like, I mean, the algorithm stuff can work, but yeah, yeah.
So the Trior, was it the triangular robot with 3 balls?
Yes,
for wheels?
yes, the ball, yeah, wheels.
You think that's practical?
Actually, so I've seen it in action, and it actually, yeah, it's simple, and also like I don't know, I think people want that simple to repair, simple to replace thing. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'm not sure about the Tribot, but for me, the most exciting piece of technology are still the dog robots. I still think they're quite cool, and they could be useful for some inspection jobs and fetch jobs, I guess, like real dogs. But yeah, they're just cool, and we'll probably see more of them in factories.
I think the funniest thing is Marco seems to be biased because the robot dogs are the only ones that are unleashing AI on them, like reinforcement learning, and they're doing insane things. Have you seen the recent videos of that animal from, or whatever, how do you say it? Animal, right? Yeah.
Animal,
Yeah, doing parkour and like jumping off bridges and like doing insane stuff. And they're doing reinforcement learning in NVIDIA Isaac Gym and then unleashing it on the robot apparently.
Yeah, that's true. I do think that's the only way actually to make those robots operate properly and behave properly. It would be extremely hard, or rather impossible, to use classical like control algorithms to make them work like that.
Yeah, programming every motion of the arm to, yeah. It's like the new way video games are made. So, Russ can probably speak to this as well. Like instead of, modeling each asset or programming each thing, a lot of things are now procedurally generated. And they're even talking about using ChatGPT for generating scripts and things like that. So sort of things being done more in an automated sense. Yeah.
So another trend, and I think what Russ pointed out about just using an AGV and moving things over, I'm sure there's a use case, but in Japan, and this I heard from the Chinese vendors who were there, who were selling, so there's no bias there, but they were said that basically, nobody in warehouses where they use pallets, etc., wants these tiny AMRs. They're not interested. So basically what they want is automated forklifts, even if it's a smaller one or, mini one, even if it has limited autonomy, they want forklifts. And they said they've sold more forklifts, even though they make 2 products, the small AMR that looks like everyone else's, and the forklift. In Japan, everybody wants that, even if it's, manually driven or semi-automated. But yeah, so that was an interesting, comment from the vendors.
Related to that, so there was one, just a safety note. I saw one company that had a forklift and it didn't have any sort of pole coming up. So it wasn't, like a standard, forklift or a pallet jack. It was an automated pallet jack. But it just struck me as very dangerous because this thing that's only about, I don't know, like 6 or 8 inches tall is moving around, and your eye line is up here. So yeah, that just struck me as like there's definitely still a disconnect between usability from a human perspective and usability from work getting done. So related to the forklift or AMR's question, I'd like to know what all of you think from a factory perspective of mobile robots going around and moving things versus changing the infrastructure. And this also applies, of course, to houses and construction, things like that. So having things move around in the space to affect the facility, or having the facility itself automated, or something similar like this high robotics thing that is just sort of implemented in a giant cube storage space. And there's another example of that I can pull up. Yeah, go ahead, Marco.
Yeah, so my opinion is that the less flexible you make it, the better the factory will be. So you want your factory to be constrained, to everything to operate like on rails and to be deterministic. I wouldn't want like AMRs randomly wandering around my factory, or humanoid robots just stumbling over like cables or whatever, right? When I think about a factory of the future, I just think about assembly line, and everything just zooms for the assembly line, and that's pretty much it. But yeah,
It's a very academic viewpoint. So I think there's a sweet spot. I think you a lot of products kind of really lean very hard into AI and like it's autonomous and like that's good. Like it's great that it can do that. However, you still like practically you want to ease your current employees or whatever situation you have in, say, hey, this is a new thing, here's how you can like override it, here's how it can use to help you. We're going to set it up so it's like automatic one day, there's like a transition period, but I think that's good. Like,
so basically AMRs and humanoids and dogs are just the transition period from like manual labor to fully automated and integrated factories.
In some ways,
Yeah.
I mean but the actual like operating those machines. So like, at the end of the day, there's still going to be people that need to maintain these things, check on them. There's something in the mix. Also, the price is kind of weird. That's another crazy thing. So this is more a little bit on the U.S. side, but like I went to a chip manufacturer one time, not a chip, but like literal like chips, like eating chips. And no, but like, so you see like they make mixed packs, and there's three like low wage workers that are picking like really fast and throwing the bags into a box, and that's how they do it. And the guy says like, yeah, I could do a bunch of research and pay a bunch of money and get like maybe an arm to kind of do this, but like the cost like doesn't make any sense. And also like it's a very difficult problem, so why not why solve it with a very expensive solution? And the same guy had like these a setup in his factory that he was like, I kind of regret buying it, even though it's a really cool like automatic like forklift type thing that like wraps pallets or something, and he's like, it breaks down, and when it breaks down, I'm screwed. I can't use it, and it wastes space. So anyway,
yeah. So the reality is that human labor is still cheaper and more flexible than robots. So unless you're operating high efficiency factory like for cars, Toyota, or like cheap production, you're probably better off with like human labor.
I think I should take Marco with me to VC meetings, because
this is anti-robotics meetup. We should rename it anti-robotics.
But it is interesting, because what you're saying is actually true. I mean, the promise of robotics is there, but I've been in robotics, and the promise of robotics has been there, right? It's always 5 or 10 years in the horizon. And as I said, if you go to VCs, they're like, oh, everything is cool, like automated, everything works, let's throw money at it. But what we are doing, in our company, is basically trying to gather the data, take the brain of the robot, put it on existing machines, and figure out how they move, and then do your optimizations and all that. But coming back to factory, so I think there's a big distinction between factories and warehouses. Factories, manufacturing facilities, yes, it should be tightly controlled, and it's nothing really should change, and it should be perfect. So yes, that's not, there's not much argument that factories, automation should be good. But warehouses, where pallets and stuff are moving around continuously, yes, you could reconfigure massive warehouses to fit robots, but no one wants to do that. And that's the pushback from the customers in Japan, where they're saying, give us things that sort of fit into the infrastructure, rather than change the whole infrastructure of giant warehouses. So that's,
I just played too much Factorio on PC.
Yeah, well, also the ability to pivot. I think also because you could have this really great factory, you make mooncakes one day, you make onigiri one day, you want to change it up to make French fries. I don't know, you want to change it. Being able to say, oh, we can do that in like a short amount of time, versus like, okay, we have to totally gut everything. It's gonna take years. So that's powerful. I don't know if that's like there yet, but like it's in the realm, and that's where integrators like can make stuff happen.
Yeah. Flexible automation and flexible manufacturing has been my course books from mechanical engineering from the 90s, so the pipe dream, like flexible manufacturing, flexible automation.
Well, to bring it back to what you said about the special, robots being only 5-10 years away, Optimus recently folded laundry, and then when confronted about this, because it was teleoperated, actually, Elon Musk said, "Oh, no, it's going to be there soon. It's going to be there soon." But we know the leap from, not that teleoperation is bad. It's just, be honest about it, essentially.
We have a story from Robotex about folding. Did anyone? You're talking about Kawata, right? So Kawata had, So I happen to, this is my luck. Whenever I walk by a folding demo, whether it's Honda or maybe some company works. Anyway, the point is it never works whenever I walk by it. So this time the robot the Kawata robot was sitting there with hands with grippers, which were like a tri gripper. I've never seen one like that. It's like a tri gripper. I was like, why do you have a tri gripper to, pick up cloth? It's like a pinch is better. He was like, no, that belongs to another company, and they wanted us to put their gripper hand on this robot and make it do this. So I'm like, so what's going on? They show me there's a folding board, literally there's a robot with a folding board, and it's using this tri gripper to put the cloth on the folding board and then fold it. And he said, I can't show the demo because the unfolding is broken. So
yeah, I mean, and I think this is what I'm trying to hit home. I think with all this like discourse too is like there's often a rift between like the business case and like the cool tech, right? It's like, this is great, like that's cool. You can make a robot that folds laundry, that's great. But like, does anybody in the market want to pay like, I don't know, $1 million for a robot to fold your laundry? Like, probably not. Doesn't make sense. Maybe if you're in a laundry folding business at high output and you really need that, but you probably just going to automate that with like factory, like, belts and like, some type of setup, not like a robot arm, which is like fun and cool, but what the heck, So I mean, and the same, I just want to mention too, and not to like go too down that large language model thing, but like an AI, but it's like, even with that, it's like, this is cool, I can chat with this robot, but like what's the end? Like, as like, okay, I can have this great deep conversations, like, okay, you're trying to like pay for a robot friend, like, is it like my Netflix subscription I'm subscribing so I can like have discourse with, like, this is great, but like what's the what?
Do you want us to answer that question?
I mean, hey, yeah, if you have an answer,
Go for it, because it actually segues nicely into the next topic.
So, I mean, of course, Marco is the expert on LLMs. I mean, more than any of us. But the recent movement in robotics has been, because there's foundation models for, LLMs, there has to be foundation models for robots, right? I mean, robots have to have some piece of that action. So we have companies like Google and others creating this whole project. I forget, it's called RRTX or something. The idea is that if you can come up with a library of tasks that a robot can do, you can generalize it to any other task. So what I asked them is, can the robot do any of the tasks well? So so imagine a robot that can do all these tasks with 57% accuracy, and you're combining it with an LLM to create a new task. What do you think the probability of success is going to be? So that's the question I asked, not the whether LLMs will work. I'm sure they will do their job, but the skills has to be there. The each token or what skill, whatever.
That's a question for me.
No, just comments.
Yeah. So in the long run, I think that there will be like a big synergy between large language models and robotics research, but that has been like a downfall and pitfall for many startup companies for decades. Like, they come from the university lab, and we have this cool research that we did our PhD on. Let's build a company and let's sell it to small and medium businesses. And then that doesn't happen, right? They build it and just like, we don't need this in our factory. Like, or they need to go through like hoops with integrators and then just become like a small, like a provider for something, right? But future is bright. Although I do sound pessimistic, I do believe in automation and robotics.
So I want to tackle one more subject, and then we'll take some questions from the audience, mainly in here, but maybe we can take some online ones as well. So the issue of software. So traditionally, and I'm going to plug Toyota Research Institute, the idea was that Japan's strength lied in manufacturing and mechanical engineering and very precise, machines and products. And Silicon Valley was the powerhouse of modern, good, stable, safe software. TRI was founded with that idea to bring those two together. But now with, I'm going to call it AI washing, like greenwashing or pink washing, where everyone's putting AI on everything. How do you feel about Japan's status there with creating systems that will depend on solid software, both from a usability standpoint, considering the last 10 Japanese websites you've used, and from an actual, production side of things? So both what you saw at the conference and then in general, how do you feel about Japan's prospects for software going forward?
I think these guys need to think and answer it properly, but I can say from a very shallow observation of the UIs and UX, what talk about everyone knows. But at the actual expo, there were companies selling, logistics, integration dashboards and things like that, and they were pretty amazing looking. So now what I don't know is, are they being in-house or is being outsourced somewhere else? But the end result was, that's a change from even like 2 years ago when I first went to the these exhibitions, and I saw some of them were great and some of them were terrible, very like clunky, tons of things. But somehow the movement has happened to those dashboards starting to look, and most of them were in English, which was a shock to me this time, right? So most of them were in English and they look clean, modern, like material design, whatever you call them, like superb actually. So that was, it was very, felt warm that, they're working on the UI and looks good.
Yeah, I think with you're talking about like kind of fleet management software. I'm always like amazed how that it's like so many companies are trying to like hit that. And it's big, like AWS like themselves, and then like people are just using the backend of AWS, like or other whatever. And it's like the essential problem is like, okay, the dream problem is I'm a big warehouse. I bought a whole bunch of different robots and equipment, and like I have to alt tab to different things to control them. So I want them on one screen so I can manage them, which is like, okay, like isn't that big of a problem? Like, is this like so it's just it's interesting. I think the kind of issue though with the Japan side of things, like looping that back, is that they're globally, so you have companies like AWS and like other people, messing around the space, and I think a lot of times the solutions that come from Japan are very like localized, nationally focused. Like they're trying to be like Japan companies. That's our kind of thing. That's what we're aiming at. So then they kind of fall behind, or they can become a niche market, and it kind of is siloed off, which is, and that happens with a lot of software things. Like, and Japan has their own like way to do things, and like globally there might be a better solution, but even the buyers are like, well, I think I'd rather work with a Japanese company because they know us better, they know the company better, or we can. So yeah.
Marco?
What was the question though?
Oh, okay. I was expecting you to just go pass or something. So what do you feel about, based on what you saw today and in general, what do you feel about Japan sort of jumping into the
software and hardware?
Yes.
Yeah. I agree with Avik that Japan is improving when it comes to software. There's actually a lot of highly skilled workers coming from abroad, and then they're also passing their knowledge to local engineers. And software engineering is not rocket science, and I'm sure that Japan will catch up with the rest of the world. I hope they'll retain their distinct design and sensibilities. But yeah, they'll catch up with modern web technologies and software development practices.
Cool. At this point, we have about 15 minutes left, so I'd like to open it up to audience questions. If you have a question, just raise your hand. And I don't think we have a, do we have a hand mic by any chance? Oh, awesome. Okay. So yeah, if you guys could gather questions. Does anybody have a question for us about anything? Or they could chat. Yes.
Okay, my name is Ray, and I'm from Taiwan. I actually come back from the Factory Innovation 2024, and I'm amazing that things changed since last time I've been this kind of explorer, and things the more the change from software side, not just robotic as well. But I also run a factory in mainland of China, in Taiwan as well. So the question and the pain point for my company is that we actually have the old factory. Then the old factory, the whole layout and the whole facility and the IT infrastructure is totally not suitable for the robotic. Is one thing I saw. Another thing is, and when we talk about the factory, is actually the two different technologies. One is the operation technology, one is information technology. So for information technology, is actually you can use a lot of SaaS model, you can use a cloud service, is very nice. But for operation system, it need to very reliable. No mistake can be made. And once you made a mistake, then you stop hold the production line, your people start working. So I think that's a pain point for my company. So I'm encouraging what kind of insight you sell or what kind of solution that we can attack as an advisor to run the old factory or a small factory like this. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So the thing that we see at the expo, we're seeing very polished demos, I guess, that have been run many times. We don't know the reliability, the mean time between failure of any of these. So yeah, how would you, my question would be, how would you judge this based on what you've seen, and then your other thoughts on the question as well?
I think the question, as far as I understood, the question is, what kind of technologies can help you today, right? I think for existing factories, it's definitely a pure software play, right? Basically, there are a lot of small startups that are not, you won't hear about them. Only maybe factory owners know about them because they're targeting, factories. They have come up with very good software to help you with operational flow and fault diagnosis and management, and telling you things that, look, if this happens, we can guarantee that if you only touch this part is not affected. So I've heard of such companies. I wasn't interested because it sounded boring to me, but but I think in this case, it's a pure, you can improve without changing the building or anything. You could improve by instrumenting and more software things. And of course, on that, you can add on layers of this AI predictive stuff. But I think first step is, identification, optimizing flows, and figuring out, redundancies and things like that. At least that's my feeling, hearing your description.
And Avik, I actually think that your company can help in this situation, because that's what you do. You take the existing old piece of technology, and then you add smarts to it, and you make it automated, right?
Yeah, more in a warehouse kind of context. And if it's a large enough factory where things are moving around, yeah, it's along the same lines. But I'm talking, yeah, definitely more of a instrument and software and diagnose, and then think about, you might even identify things which will tell you that I don't need this, or I need to automate this for sure.
I'd say kind of you can try to do what I would like to call, I'm just making this up, it's not our official term, but it's like a sandbox amoeba. So you just start doing a sandbox, say okay, we're gonna allocate a little space to like some new process and try it out, and then really kind of like test it out, get the hiccups out, see if it doesn't work, then be like, okay, that didn't work, try something else, whatever. But you have some space that is not maybe updated or do just in a small section. That said, also I think find companies that you can pose the challenge to and you feel like they can accomplish it, and like really work with, be like, hey, here's the situation, like I have these big holes in the floor or something, it's an old factory, I don't think the AMR is going to roll over that, tell me what I can do. And they might say, well, pave the floor, or they might say, oh, we're going to use more rugged terrain, or we're going to find a path around it. I don't know, like there's different approaches. So, but having some confidence in certain companies, especially startups.
But can I ask a question to you, actually? So what is that you want to achieve with automation? Is there a shortcoming in your current factory that you want to overcome with robotics? Or is it some specific problem, or you just like automation?
Yeah, I think that this problem is very similar to Japan, is because in Taiwan we also faster elder people and getting more and more, and younger people is have less willing to get operation in getting a job inside of the factory. So that meant there's no choice to have to consider how to automate some job or some process is first thing. Another thing is that some machine they run with a recipe, and is a recipe sometimes in hiding with the older elder people, and it's hard to logistics such kind of recipe. So that is another pain point. Once these elder people, elder operator retire, then we probably have the face some issue to lowering down our yield rate. So that's the two main pain point. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, labor shortage and brain drain, I guess would be the term, or silo knowledge. Common. Yep. Thank you. We probably have time for 2 or 3 more if anybody wants to throw a question, or if we have any on the Zoom. No, go ahead.
Hi, my name is Benjamin. I would be very interested on your take when it comes to like simulations in terms of like using NVIDIA technologies, like large language models or other technologies to sell robotic solutions to customers, especially in the process of streamlining the simulation process to make more affordable offers. At the moment, simulation is still a hard take and still a very innovative technology. That means not every company can afford this kind of technology and the research that goes with it. But in terms of like making the sell call and streamlining the solutions to sell the robotic solutions, do you think, especially for mid-sized companies, there's a market where you can use all these new technologies to get higher sales and improve the profit and also make a step forward in terms of the competitors in the market?
So if I understood the question correctly, I would say that your customers don't really care that much about the technology you use, in the same way that you don't care what type of a motor is in your robotic arm. You also don't care what type of simulation it is. So I wouldn't say that should be the primary way to sell your solution, because as he explained, he has concrete problems, right? And you need to address those and not come with like, oh, we use like NVIDIA simulation, this is like ray tracing, reinforcement learning. Just like, so what, right? Does it solve my problem or not? And if I was the customer, I would think like that, right? So
I would say the use of simulation is a very important topic, because there are things that are good to do with simulation and things that are sort of a never-ending game. To give an example of what I mean, if you're trying to mimic a computer vision algorithm by trying to make a photorealistic simulation and saying that my camera works here, it's going to work in real life, that's a bad idea. I can tell you from my 20 that that's just a bad idea. But however, for testing logic about how you're going to set up operations, planning, and giving a good visualization to the people who plan the operations, and not only that, for some sensors like LiDAR, it's perfectly fine to do simulation with LiDAR because it's physics, right? I mean, you can add the noise model. Some things are great, and as you said, like basically, yeah, I mean, you can use the tools, but at the end, and the biggest thing is safety. The biggest use in my past life when I was doing Celeranka, the biggest use of simulation is things that you can't do, like crash, like basically going to the point of where you would not send a real robot. I think that's the biggest use of simulation in my mind, and not many people are talking about it, right? People are simulating arms and work cells, but look at the collisions and what happens.
Can I just clarify my stance? It's not that you should not use simulation and large language models and reinforcement learning. It's that you should not lead your sales process with that. But yeah, please do use these tools if they solve your problem, right?
The question is if it can make the customer pay less or make it more affordable in terms of finding solutions that would otherwise probably not find the way to the customer, and using that to make the whole process more affordable. So it's not about the ray tracing and the fancy stuff to look at, to showcase and make the sales call. It's more about like, is it already at the stage to make more affordable solutions in less amount of time to therefore make them more profitable?
I think that certain aspects of it are so. Even in my previous company, right, we actually did use simulation to generate synthetic images that we then use to train machine learning models for computer vision. So what that did is remove the necessity to gather real life data and annotate manually, right? We could just generate hundreds of thousands of different images of target objects and scenarios, and then we could train our machine learning models on that, right? So it definitely sped up our process and development significantly. And yeah.
Good, awesome. So we should probably end here. We have about a minute left. We're going to try and share a video that Avik has dubbed the current state of robotics, or that it's not working. Well, basically, it was a pneumatic gripper that was picking up a pineapple, and it was slow and it was boring. Is that what you said?
Essentially,
Okay.
So, yeah. Sorry. The video was essentially this super powerful industrial arm, which Marco thinks is a cobot, but let me tell you that it could knock you out.
I disagree. I've seen that demo, and that was definitely a cobot with 20 kilo payload.
It can still kill you. Anyway, so so basically, it was a demo where the selling item were the rubber grippers, right? So this is like a statement on the fact that why should we solve manipulation for industrial use when apparently rubber grippers can pick up everything, right? So the idea was, what do they show to that we can pick up objects? They chose a pineapple, which is a very, very strange choice, so for the technology showcase, right? Yes, it can pick up a pineapple with rubber suckers, lift it up 2 inches in the air, move it sideways to show that it won't fall off, and put it down. And that was the, as soon as you walk into Robodex, that's the first thing you see. So I thought it was pretty funny.
I would say that pineapple is actually a very challenging thing to pick up with a suction, because it's very rough and uneven. It has spikes, so you cannot get the proper seal, and the pineapple itself, it's kind of heavy. So if they were able to do it properly, then good for them.
Yeah. So the fun and what I didn't say before was the pineapple was pretty. Tiny things were pretty, you know.
So we'll call it there, and we'll say
How
that
about
we,
them pineapples?
Well, how about them? It was a drive-by fruiting. So we'll say that we went full circle with demos that are highly polished and specific for there. If you want to see the video, sorry for people online, but please come and see Avik's phone after this. And that's it. Thank you. We'll be holding our next one next month. Oh yeah, go to Robodex. The last day is tomorrow.
It's
yep.
free.
And it's
So,
free.
yeah.
We'll be holding our next one next month. It might be organized like this, but then we're also going to be doing some more casual ones, probably in Shibuya at certain places. And that's it. Thank you.
Check out IREX. That was a robot show in December, IREX. I thought it was a little better. That's a whole nother talk, though. Yeah, it was bigger. Yeah.
And guys, there's going to be the biggest robotics conference, ICRA, in Yokohama in May. So that's when you see the real big promises of robotics.
But that's the academic conference, right?
Yes, but they also have industrial demos, so
Yeah.
they might be more impressive. But they're demos.
Yeah. Also, speaking of academics, Mass Robotics is having a competition for robotics startups. So if you're interested, academics, let me know. I got some flyers and stuff for you.
Free pineapples.
Ooh.
All right. Thank you, everyone.